Hello, and happy Monday, June 16th. You are tuned in to the TED Manila Information Show, TMI Show for short, because we bring you way too much information. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rall. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, so please be sure to like and follow the show. We are producerless today. Producer's got some personal things going on, so if we miss anything in the chat, please bear with us or say it multiple times. Post it multiple times if you're trying to get our attention. I am trying to go back there and look at the chat as often as I can during the show. So bear with us if we miss anything. I'm sorry, and we will give IOUs to any questions because I know you guys often post questions in the chat. But we are down one person today. But we thank you for being with us. Again, please make sure you hit the like and follow button wherever you're consuming this content. It really does help the algorithms and helps the show. We're trying to reach another threshold. If you're watching on YouTube and you have not yet followed the program, please be sure to hit the subscribe button because it is free on YouTube to hit the subscribe button, and it really helps us with our metrics. And it'll help this show keep going in the way of ad revenue. So if you're not in the position to donate, do the super chats or whatever, all you got to do is subscribe, and it will really
get a job? How about that? How about get a job, work hard, and tithe us 15%?
Oh, like
pretend
the church,
like we're God.
We could start our own church, Ted. I don't know what it would be called, but we could do that.
It would be the TMI church, where we would give you too much information about your mortality and your sinning. We would tell you how gross and disgusting you were. Well, that's Catholicism, basically.
That's good. Yeah, I was going to say a lot of shaming is covered in Catholicism already.
Yeah, they got to us. They have a 2,000-year head start.
They got a real big head start. So anyway, on that note, actually, that's going to be kind of tangentially related to one of the topics that we're going to cover later today in the program is how disgusting we are as human beings. So disgusting that we're shedding like You've heard of shedding pheromones, Ted. I think people have heard of that. You know, like babies, the reason people love babies generally is because they shed these pheromones off their skin and their heads, and it triggers this tribal animalistic instinct to want to love it and protect it.
Yep.
Even if it's other people's babies, you can still, like me as a mom, that portion of my brain hasn't like weaned off yet. So when I smell other people's babies, I'm like, I want to care for you. I want to take you in. This is the opposite of that. This is when you're repulsed by other people.
Yeah.
Completely repulsed and have an actual physiological response.
It's not, you might love their personality, you might love their looks, but your body is literally starts to fall apart when you get near them.
Your body,
people who are allergic to other people. We're going to be talking about that.
Your body literally rejects the other person, whether it's scent, not by sight, but all the other senses
and other things too. Is it too early in the show to say jism?
The jizz,
jism is going to be involved here.
So we're going to have a little bit of a weird science session towards the end of the show.
Yep.
But of course, we're going to have to talk about the back and forth between Israel and Iran.
Yep,
that's obviously
up first.
That's up first because we're on the precipice of World War III, Ted.
A little World War never killed anyone.
I knew we were not at the precipice of World War III, at least for Russia's part in Russia-Ukraine. I was never worried that Russia was going to suddenly go nuts and blow up the world. I thought the US, if we, under Biden, that could happen. But he's gone now. So obviously the threat of world war
arguably he was gone the whole time.
There's that. But I think the threat of World War III has greatly diminished as it pertains to Ukraine. But this, I would say, can drag the US into a whole world of shit. We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about, cheapening U.S. citizenship despite all of these ICE raid protests.
It's going to be expensive.
Well, cheapened, but not
U.S. citizenship for sale officially online now.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. And some more DNC infighting because these folks have not figured out why they're not popular. I think that's
maybe if they stopped being selfish shitheads who only cared about themselves and lining their pockets, maybe that would change.
Tomato, Ted. Taste is subjective. But the DNC's got some real problems with their new leadership. And we talked about it last week with, David Hogg stepping down as like vice chair, even though he's like 12 years old and wet behind the ears. Somehow he was qualified to be in a leadership position.
Can you imagine?
I guess by virtue
vice
of
chair
surviving
of the DNC.
Yeah.
Insane.
He's like 12. Okay, he's 25.
And by the way, he's not an old 25 either. You know what I mean? You and I have both known that. People like that.
No. I was an old 25. He's like a child 25.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, that's a whole thing.
Yeah,
so
he's not even a man-child.
Trouble.
He's just a child.
No, the DNC is in a world of trouble. And I can't believe I found myself defending him last week. But anyway, we'll tell you what's going on with the DNC and why. Personally, I think this highlights why they're destined to fail in 2028 because they're going to have nobody to put up but Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
remember, they're not going to have Gavin because I'll make sure of that. They're going to have to find someone else. No, I have the receipts on Gavin.
I know that. Well, that
and no, it's going to be. I'm going to make it my business. So for anybody who's currently watching, who's working on Oppo research for a possible Democratic opponent of Governor Newsom, call me. Anyone who's considering running as a Republican candidate in 2028 against Gavin Newsom, call me. Oppo research. I'm standing by. I'll take your call 24/7. Let me know.
Well, that would be exciting. There you are. So anyone listening for 2028, or anyone that knows anyone that's going to be working on 2028, because we already know Gavin's planning on that.
Oh, for sure.
Ted Rall's got some receipts to show you.
I do.
So with that, let's head over to doing the news.
Iranian missiles have struck Israeli cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa, destroying houses and fueling concerns among world leaders at this week's G7 that the conflict between the two countries could lead to a broader war in the Middle East. Hey, guys, let me give you one way that you could actually help fix this and reduce the chance of World War III. Make it the G8 again. Bring Russia back. Russia is like currently poised to negotiate something between them. They've talked to both the Ayatollah and to Bibi, and they're both taking their calls. Both sides respect Putin. So maybe
Putin is already calling, publicly calling for an immediate ceasefire.
And Trump says he's into Putin's negotiation. So why not, so excluding the one power that's in the best position to mediate this conflict from the G7 is just another reminder of the stupidity of what they did when they kicked them out. Anyway, Israel's Magen David Odom emergency service said that 4 people were killed after strikes at 4 sites in central Israel. 87 more people were injured. The dead include 2 women and 2 men, all about 70 years old. Authorities in Petah Tikva, near Tel Aviv, said that Iranian missiles struck a residential apartment building there, charring the walls, blowing out the windows, and heavily damaging a few apartments. Search and rescue operations are underway in the northern port city of Haifa, very beautiful place, where about 30 people were wounded, emergency authorities said, as dozens of first responders rushed to the strike zones. Fires were burning at a power plant near the port. Iranian TV said the country fired at least 100 missiles at Israel, signaling that it has no intention of yielding to calls for de-escalation as Iran pressed on with its retaliation for Israel's attack against Tehran's nuclear power program and military leadership, whom they assassinated last Friday. Iran's Revolutionary Guards said the latest attack employed a new method that causes Israel's multi-layered defense systems like Iron Dome to target one another. We just don't know if that's true or not. In war, they say that the first casualty is truth. So that could just be bullshit and propaganda. And it strikes me as like, why would you reveal that in the media if that were true? Why would you just not let the Israelis be like, what the fuck's going on? We're shooting at ourselves. But I don't know. The Iranians are definitely. So here's the thing, Manila, few takeaways. I want to get your thoughts. First of all, Iran. So on the scoreboard for Iran, their retaliation has been more powerful than the people of Israel thought possible. A lot more missiles have gotten through than they expected. They've suffered more casualties. There's even been on, reports that they're like, oh, look at this particular apartment block now looks like something out of Gaza. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but the point is still made. And then on the other hand, Israel has full control over the skies over Iran. They're flying around. They can bomb anything they want, fly around, and they can get in and out without getting shot down for the most part. So how is it that Iran is so underprotected by its Air Force, which is a real Air Force, and how is it the Israelis thought that they had everything covered and that nothing would ever get through?
Well, I don't know about Iran's part, but what I do find interesting is the at this point I'm going to call it the myth of the Iron Dome. That I don't think it's everything that Netanyahu pitched it to be. Sure, there's nothing, no technology is 100% failsafe, but I don't think it's even as good as they pitched it. I think a lot of the Iron Dome has been sold as like a big media ploy. I don't think it's actually as effective as they've claimed it to be the last 20 years. And likewise, we've heard Bibi, I'm sorry, but he's kind of a snake oil salesman. I think we all know that after the last 25-ish years, he's been saying that Iran was weeks away from building a nuclear weapon for literally more than 20 years. He's literally been right down the road here from me at Capitol Hill, holding up, remember that chart with the bomb that he drew? And that he's like taking a Sharpie and coloring into it. He's like, this far away, this far away. And he's climbing up and up. And he said that 20 plus years ago. So at some point, when are we going to learn that you can't really trust what Netanyahu says, whether it's a threat assessment or the so-called safety and security of his own people? Because if the Iron Dome was as secure as it claimed, you wouldn't be seeing these Iranian missiles having such devastating effect, nor if the skies in Israel were as safe as he claimed, October 7th wouldn't have happened. Although, of course, there are some questionable, Epstein-style guards were on break, or they were doing some online shopping at the moment, or they were,
yeah,
9-hour
delay after the smart fence was breached.
There was some online
showed up.
Online shopping can, Ted, if the guards were doing some online shopping, sometimes you fall down the rabbit hole.
Angry Birds.
You're just
for me, eBay political button shopping.
Yeah, it just, before you know, it's like, I'm going to look at this for 9 minutes on my cigarette break. Before you know it, it's a whole carton later. It's 9 hours. Thousands of people are getting butchered. It's, but Israel is safe, right? So I think that's probably something more to highlight than Iran not having. I mean, although that is perplexing, given that Iran has a lot of technology and why their skies aren't so safe.
So Iran has 400 aircraft in its air force. About 230 are combat planes. There's 37,000 members of the Iranian Air Force. So it's not like the biggest air force in the world, but it's a significant force. This isn't the Taliban, who had nothing in the air. I guess the only thing I can possibly guess here is that this has to do with the problems that the Iranians have had securing parts for a lot of their planes due to years and years of sanctions. A lot of the planes in the Iranian fleet are old leftover F-14s from the Shah era, from pre-1979. So they're old, and they obviously maintaining them is challenging. But they also have some old French planes, like I think that's the Phantom 2 the F-4 Phantom. That's an American plane also. That's like from the 70s. So they have a lot of old stuff from the 70s. The Mirage, now that's a French plane. They got that from the Iraqis back in 1991. So just saying that, like, they have a lot of older planes, and probably the Israeli stuff is a lot more up to date in terms of, like, it's faster, more agile, more radar, more stealth technology. So, but still, I mean, it's pretty startling that that they have the full run of the skies. I had a incident where I had a friend of mine. He and I were both in Central Asia. We were in Bishkek together, and we flew back separately to the United States. He was Iranian, and he wanted to look up his ex-girlfriend. He had lost touch with since the revolution. So he went to Tehran and on his way back to LA. And on the way, the Air Kyrgyzstan plane developed some problems. And the pilot announced, like, hey, we're not going to be able to deploy the landing gear. So we're going to have to crash land the plane at Tehran. Then the pilot came back on and said, actually, Tehran just renovated Ayatollah Khomeini Airport. So they don't want to let us land there and crash on their runway. So we're going back to Bishkek. And at that moment, my friend Jay said he looked out the window and there was an Iranian plane, a fighter jet, right off the wings, like tip to tip, wing to wing. And so to escort them out of Iranian airspace, right? This isn't America on 9/11 where there's no air defenses. This is a real country. And they escorted them back out of Iran, and they flew back to Kyrgyzstan. And by the way, the pilot, this is also not America. The pilot came on and he's like, I'm not going to bullshit you. This is a Tupolev 154. There's no foam at the runway at Bishkek. I'm going to burn off as much fuel as I can before we land, but we're all going to die. So make your peace with Allah, and say goodbye to your children if they're with you. You'll all see each other in the afterlife.
Oh my God.
And so they circled, and everything got real quiet. People were crying and hugging their kids.
Sure.
And then the plane came in, and then they saw. He said it was very, it's very clear in Central Asia. There's hardly a cloud in the sky for the most part. He could see emergency equipment from all over the stands, like lined up alongside of the runway, because even the Uzbeks and the Kazakhs sent emergency equipment. And then they hit this huge pocket of turbulence, and the pilot came on and said, "You'll never guess. That just knocked the landing gear down. We're going to make a normal landing." So they landed the plane.
So the hand of God smacked the jet
exactly.
and brought the landing gear down. Like, you just need, sometimes you just need to bang on the technology.
So I asked Jay, so what did you do? And he goes, well, what do you mean? What did I do? He goes, they WD-40'd the plane, and we got back on the plane and we flew to Tehran. I'm like, he goes, what would you have done? I'm like, me? God. I'd be like, I'm loving the bus right now.
I will be hitchhiking my way.
I'm on team bus for the next 4 days. Like,
I will be hitchhiking my ass to Tehran.
I'm smiling on the bus, big grin on the bus. But anyway, that's like not what he did. It changed his life. He was a real serious, like, he was a coxman. I mean, really, he was a really good looking Iranian guy. And he real playboy, LA, Persian LA guy.
I know them.
You know the type. You may have dated them. I don't know. And so he went back to Tehran, like proposed to his ex-girlfriend. They got married. Now they live in LA together. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I mean, obviously that the pilot did scare the shit out of everybody. So there's that. But I will say in terms of like deploying your jets to escort other unwanted aircraft out of the sky, Russia does that all the time. Remember a couple of years ago, before or just as the war got underway, America was doing reconnaissance, little spying here and there. And a couple of times Russian jets went and kind of scooted by them and squirted American jets with, like, I don't know, like slime from like Double Dare or whatever, just slimed the other jets. And America was like, oh my God, the Russians slimed our jets with whatever and forced us away from their territory. Yeah, because that's what a serious country does. That's what a country that actually has deterrence and an actual border defense plan, whether it's by sky, by sea, by land. That's what a serious country does. So I think in lieu of that, because I don't think Israel has a whole bunch of jets either. I forget the number of jets that they have, but it's not a whole, I mean, granted, they're more modern than the Iranian jets, but I think the numbers are actually quite comparable, but they're just more modern jets. But Israel, for whatever reason, is not deploying those jets because it's kind of hard to walk it back, Ted, after you've been saying for 20 years, the Iron Dome, the Iron Dome, the Iron Dome is the best shit on earth. Like, just America, you don't have this. This is the platinum edition. You ain't got this. And then here it goes. It's kind of like an 80%.
Manila, you're totally right. Look, the Israeli Air Force, which, by the way, is flying all over Iranian airspace, they have about 600 planes, and not all of them are fighter units. Right. 270 fighter units, but these are, like you say, far more advanced F-15s, F-16s, and F-35Is.
Ted, I wonder where they're getting that equipment from.
I heard that a lot of it is available on Etsy. They come with their own, like sock, like their quilted
their own
sock.
Kits that you can build.
Yes, in many cases. And they have cute
DIY F-15
cute drawings of like Israeli themed things like hummus and bagels, and genocide. It has like genocide also like quilted in there.
Yes,
burning Palestinian children. Cute things that Israelis like.
Typical cute stuff. But yeah, so this, I hate hearing that civilians on any side of any skirmish. I hate hearing that, some little old Jewish, bubbies were killed this week.
Yeah, and for all we know, by the way,
But
these could be among the many Israelis who are against the oppression of the Palestinians, against the war in Gaza, against the settlements in the West Bank,
we don't know.
against Netanyahu. There are many like that.
But bottom line, it's sad when any civilians are killed. And just like we don't have the total death toll yet from the initial strikes before the weekend when Israel struck Tehran, when you're trying to take out some nuclear scientist at 3 o'clock in the morning, chances are he's asleep with his wife and 3 or 4 kids, and the kids were killed too. So
And the
I just
neighbors.
hate, and the neighbors. I mean, whole sides of the apartment
And the
were,
firefighters who try to rescue the neighbors and the whole thing.
it's just shitty because now you have, you know, this asshole Benjamin Netanyahu again blowing smoke saying, well, we were gonna assassinate the Ayatollah directly, but then we just decided to bomb whole apartments, and
Yeah,
because
so
Trump said
so
no.
Manila, you should fill in people to what you're referring to there about wanting to kill the Ayatollah. That's a report that, like, blink and you miss it.
Yes, that should be a bigger story, that reportedly Trump waved off the idea of Bibi pitching the idea of killing the Ayatollah directly rather than, well, I don't know if it's rather, but maybe in concert with killing all of the scientists and the high-ranking military officials. That reportedly Bibi pitched his idea about killing the Ayatollah to Trump ahead of the weekend, and Trump waved it off because, Ted, he was really busy on Saturday. We had the military parade here in DC.
True.
It was Trump's 79th birthday. It was Flag Day. And Trump was like, I can't be bothered with this right now.
And there were
BB, just,
protests all over the country.
and there were some, a few uprisings in the US. And so Trump was like, bro, I don't want to hear it. Now's not the time.
I actually liked Trump's logic, though. He said, if the Iranians haven't killed a single American, how could we justify that?
So, well,
he's not wrong.
Again, I don't even buy the report of BB saying that they have this plan to kill the Ayatollah. Because if you've had this plan for so long, why haven't you done it?
Because, well, first of all, you can't, the Israelis don't do shit without U.S. approval. So
I'm not sure.
So no way.
Yes, true.
Well, because if they piss us off, we'll just cut them off, and they know it. I mean, I know they keep acting like they're in charge, the tail wagging the dog, but we're still the dog, and they're still the tail, and that's how it really is. Even though they use a lot of bluster to pretend otherwise.
Right, but my point is, I don't believe that Netanyahu actually had a real, Mossad assassination plan in place to kill the Ayatollah. He's probably the hardest man to get to.
Bomb him.
Right.
They just needed to find out his location. And don't forget all the times they tried to do that to Saddam. I mean, we lost count of how many times. They dropped a bomb on where they thought he was. But, man, he was a sly dude. And he never was there.
Well, he had a lot of body doubles.
He did, but another really interesting thing about Saddam is, he grew up very poor. He was from the mean streets of Baghdad. He was a street kid, and so one of his shticks was he was always on the move, and literally he would show up at someone's house randomly who didn't even know him, and literally his guards would show up and say, "Okay, prepare dinner. The president of the republic is staying with you tonight." It's like, what? He's just a normal bed or a cot, guest bed,
he's just crashing.
Jennifer convertible, anything, it's fine. And literally he's crashing. And then he'd hang out with them, and he'd leave them like $1,000 the next day. Thanks a lot. See ya. Now the thing is,
thanks for the hospitality.
But it's a superpower if you think about it, right? So first of all, what happens, right? So that person tells that story to everybody. And they're like, you won't believe this. Like, Saddam was here last night, and he was awesome and funny, and he was down home. He didn't need anything special. He ate our food. He was grateful. He was polite. He
put my grandson on his lap. And
we have selfies. It was, and honestly, he was, by all accounts, all of those things. And so that spread his legend. But also, when you spend hours with ordinary citizens, they tell you, you ask them like, hey, so what's troubling you? And they're like, oh man, the price of eggs is killing me here.
Right. Health insurance is so expensive.
Yeah. So then like he had like a really good sense, of what was really going on with the people. Could you imagine an American like political leader doing that? Can you imagine if if Hillary Clinton had done that, spent like every night for like, say, a year living with ordinary New Yorkers, she would have been elected president because she would know so much about everybody.
We'll save that for the DNC segment, but to your point about Saddam doing that obviously would make him hard to track, number one.
Did.
And number two,
plus
you accidentally, while you're hosting dinner, you accidentally become a human shield, Ted. So
that's exactly correct.
So there's that. So be wary if Gavin Newsom knocks on your door, California. If the governor shows up and is like, hey, what's up, bros?
Especially if you have a hot young daughter. Be careful.
Ew. Hey, what's up, bros? Want to go tan together? Like, let's hang out. Be careful. You might be a human shield.
It's awesome.
Moral of the story.
All right, let's move on here. The Trump administration has a new website up. So if you were thinking of buying American citizenship and you have $5 million lying around, it's live now. So this is the so-called gold card.
But is it only you? Is it only you, Ted, or does that come with like freebie passports for your spouse and children?
No, it's only for your ass. So if you're married and you want your plus one to show up, you got to pay $10 million.
Oh.
So anyway, the website's up. It's the gold card. And so you submit your age, where you're from, your email, your family status. And then there's the card, which is hilarious. It's literally like this cheesy Photoshopped card of a gold card that says 5 million on it. It looked like something like a rapper would have come up with.
So is it like a credit card size?
Yeah. Don't leave home without it. It has Trump's face on it, a Statue of Liberty, a bald eagle. I don't know. She probably has some missiles, a Grand Canyon, like Budweiser, all the symbols of America. The Green Bay Packers. And he said this provides permanent residency. It's like a green card. Wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card, he said. They'll be wealthy and they'll be successful and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people. And we think it's going to be extremely successful. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, possibly the least intelligent person to have ever been Commerce Secretary, said at the time the program was intended to replace the EB-5 visa, which is similar. So this is not completely without precedent at all, to be fair to Trump. That was for people who spent $500,000 and created at least 10 jobs. But basically that program was renewed in 2022. And so eliminating that would probably require congressional approval. So at this point, I would say if you've got that $5 million lying around, I would save it for now, because you might turn out to be like, oh, this is about as valuable as your bachelor's degree from Trump University, not so good, not accredited, or your bachelor's degree from Columbia University. Same thing.
Oh, like Ted, yes.
Yeah, like me. So,
okay. I know he pitched this idea months ago, and I get like this would be.
It's a good thing Robbie's not here right now, because
I know, because he would be furious. This was like a story that he is
coming
furious
out of all of his orifice.
He's super furious about this idea, and I get it, because I think for Robbie, he feels like American citizenship is this sacrosanct thing, and that you should respect the country, respect the Constitution, and it's not something you can buy and sell like a commodity. And I agree, for the most part, I agree. The whole concept, the premise that Trump had for developing this, and I feel like this is such a Trumpian idea that I don't think it came from any of his advisors. I don't think it came from Howard Lutnick. But Lutnick probably egged him on.
No ideas come from Howard Lutnick. He has to be reminded to take a shit and a piss Otherwise, he'll just do it in his pants.
He looks like a greasy used car salesman. Look at him there on the screen.
Dumb as
Doesn't he look like a
shit.
used car salesman?
Elon said it too. Elon said that he was dumb as shit. And
Oh, really? Well,
I believe Elon.
So I think the president, this was his brainchild because one, we know that the president loves the idea of being around other rich people. And so I think this was his idea of attracting other rich people to the country. But the whole premise, I think, is stupid because he actually said that if he attracts, tens of thousands of, I don't know what he thinks, I don't know what he's projected to get, how many people he's projected to get on this $5 million gold visa.
Get about 15,000 people, Manila.
That's what I would figure. Maybe, 10 plus thousand-ish. But he said that this could help bring down the national debt. That's not going to bring...
Well, look, it won't even put a dent. It won't even knock down 1% of it, right?
I think this will be worse than Doge. Doge said they were going to bring down the
1% would be $37 billion. You're not going to get to $37 billion that way.
With let's say 20 millionaires say yes to this, and they're like, okay, here's five mil. Give me my gold card.
So that's $100 million.
That doesn't even fund the Department of Education.
Oh, it doesn't. No, or USAID or NPR or anything.
No, nothing. What's $100?
Well, here's the other thing too, right? Like, so if you have the kind of money that has $5 million just to burn, the odds are that you don't really need a green card or U.S. citizenship. You're doing great in the Republic of Eritrea or wherever you are. Okay, you're fine. You. Why would you need to move? If you feel like coming to the United States for a few months, get a tourist visa, and you can still buy an apartment here, and in South Beach or whatever. There's just no. It's kind of like it's not much of an incentive, I'd say.
You can buy. I forget which Caribbean island. Maybe it's St. Croix. Maybe I forget which Caribbean island, but they basically, I think Trump stole the idea from them because they have something very similar. Like if you have, and it's much cheaper. Like if you had like $10,000 or something, you can buy a citizenship, full citizenship, and get dual citizenship to wherever you're from with, let's call it St. Croix, because I can't remember off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But
look it up.
One of the Caribbean islands, you can get full-blown citizenship for a matter of like 10 grand. And then so if your home country, let's say, is on the partial ban list like Laos, if you're a rich Lao person, you got 10 grand, drop it in St. Croix, get their citizenship also, and then come to the US with a tourist visa. Boom, boom, bam, done. You saved yourself. I just saved you $490,990,000. Is that right? 990,000. This is bad math. But I just saved you millions of dollars. That's how you do that.
So I'm going to here are the specific countries in the Caribbean. There's 5 nations in the Caribbean
that do that.
That do this. It's a little more than you said, but it's certainly a lot less than $5 million. Antigua and Barbuda, $230,000.
Been there, love that place. They drive on the wrong side of the road, by the way. Don't like that.
Dominica, 200 grand.
Dominica.
Yeah, and by the way, Dominica, is that how you pronounce it? Anyway, so you could either donate to the Economic Diversification Fund, aka account for the benefit of corrupt government officials, or real estate. So you could just buy a house.
Any house?
Yeah, real estate. Any real estate. You could just buy a house, right? $200,000.
I love Dominica.
A house. Okay. And then Grenada, $235,000. I've never been. Again, you could buy a house for $350,000. Same difference. I know people who've been. They say they really like Grenada. St. Kitts and Nevis, $250,000. Okay. And St. Lucia, $240,000. Or again, $300,000.
St. Lucia's beautiful.
In $300,000 in real estate.
So much cheaper than getting a U.S. gold card visa, because if you get one of those citizenships too, you can also you get property out of it and a passport, and then you could just come visit the U.S. anyway. So I think this whole thing, like to Robbie's whole point in pitching this story, is that what does it actually mean to be American, Ted? Are we that superficial at this point in late stage capitalism? Are we just that superficial that all it takes to be an American now is you're rich? Is that what it means?
Yes, that would be correct. By the way, there's other countries in the world that do the same thing, and some of them might really surprise you. So I think probably the least appealing would be Vanuatu. Beautiful, beautiful place. However, is seriously in danger of being underwater in a few years due to climate change. And the whole population will have to be forcibly relocated. But you only need to pay $150,000 in real estate. Turkey, if you buy a house worth $400,000, bam, Turkish citizenship is yours.
Really?
Malta, 738,000 euros. Interesting sum.
Steep.
But that's a sweet deal because you're in the EU. You get an EU passport. That's pretty good.
That's steep. That's really steep.
It is, but it's also and Jordan, $750,000. You couldn't pay me. Egypt, $250,000 or $300,000 in real estate.
Okay.
Austria, between 2 and 3 million euros.
Yikes. Okay.
But then you have like more pastries than you know what to do with.
Yeah, that's quite a few more countries than I knew. I knew that the Caribbean islands because I lived for a few months on Dominica. Right? That's way more than I would think.
I mean, I gotta say this. No, the sweet deal is Malta. I know you said it's pricey, but EU passport. It's like becoming a citizen of what, 27 countries. I mean.
I guess. I mean,
you guess. I mean, it
why would you?
You can live anywhere in Europe.
But why would I want to passport at this stage in this era of the world? Why would I want to go live in one of these 27 EU countries where the price of anything is through the roof? The taxes are crazy. The laws are outlandish.
It depends. I mean, come on. Europe is their economy is very, how much it costs.
Sure.
You'd be surprised
but the countries that I would want
at how cheap it is to live in some places. You should check out the real estate listings in like southern France. You would think, holy shit, it's going to be crazy.
Well,
not at all. You can buy a place for $200,000 in a beautiful town in France. I mean,
really?
Good luck finding anything like you saw that ad for the apartment near my place in Manhattan that I sent you yesterday.
Well,
they're a building like just down the street from me, starting at $1.5 million.
1.7.
1.7. My apologies. Starting. And
so,
I don't live in the fanciest part of Manhattan, by any means.
In Italy, a lot of younger American Gen Zers are kind of, and because I worked in real estate, so I'm still fascinated by that industry. One of these TikTok trends. I don't know if you can do this in Italy if you get citizenship, but there are some towns like, I don't know, like in the South or I don't know, in like Sardinia, like these way off places away from Tuscany. Away
in Sicily, there's some places like that. Yeah,
you can move to buy, one of these villages, buy one of these ramshackle very old like cottages or homes or
usually
whatever.
A stone house, yeah.
Right, a stone cottage or something for like $1,000, but it's got like $50,000 or $70,000, $100,000 in arrears and taxes, and it's run down. You got to bring it back.
You don't have to pay the taxes. You're responsible for bringing it up to code.
You have to bring it up to modern day code, and then you get to have this. Effectively, it could be a Tuscan style villa for like maybe after remod like $100,000.
Is to get a bunch of your friends to all do it together. Then you have a little community and you all make, you have a little.
I mean, that would be really cool. I don't know if you get citizenship, though, out of it in Italy.
You do.
Italy. Mm-hmm. That is something I might consider, Ted, because I feel like I'm on a sinking ship here. But
I don't want to spend like I'm too old to like do rebuilding and stuff.
I know.
I think it's a great deal if you're like in your 20s or 30s. And you have a lot of energy.
That is the thing that's trending on TikTok with Gen Z would-be property owners because they're complaining that the cost of living, they can't afford to buy a home because a lot of the Gen Zers are now in their
There's a lot of
mid-20s.
abandoned homes that you look in downtown Dayton, Ohio, where I grew up. There's historical district, this downtown called the Oregon District. Back in the 70s, the city did the same thing. They sold people houses for $1 that were just abandoned pieces of shit. And basically the deal was, we're going to come back in 5 years and it's got to be all up to code. And if so, you get to keep it. And if not, well, you got to go. So so people did it. And now those houses are worth, I mean, it's the hip, cool part of Dayton. It's expensive to live there. There are a lot of people who bought a house for $1 that now they are now sitting on top of $1 million or $2 million house.
$1 million house?
Sure, absolutely. So it's like, so the point is, and that's in little Dayton. You could do this anywhere. In my opinion, if a unit, I don't care if it's like commercial or residential, if real estate is abandoned and by the property owner, and they're either unwilling or unable to do anything with it for a number of years,
it's a blight.
It's a blight. It's dragging down the property values in the neighborhood
of everyone else.
It should be seized under eminent domain, and it should be put up for one of these programs to either yuppify the neighborhood or convert them into housing for the homeless and poor people and so on.
I usually don't like eminent domain. I usually don't like eminent domain, but in instances like this, the realtor in me,
this is what eminent domain is really for.
This is when it should be applied. I'm against it, like no activity on the property.
I'm against it, like when they're like, building a freeway and they want to knock down your building because they want to knock down your building because they're building a freeway. Fine, but they got to pay you.
Above mark, and they tell you it's market value. That is all bullshit. I mean, we can go back to the 1950s when they were building in the Chavez Ravine, when they decided to move the Brooklyn Dodgers to LA, and they got rid of whole neighborhoods in the 1950s and into the 60s. Whole at that time, you could still say they were villages of Mexican Americans, and they raised the entire neighborhood to build what is today Dodger Stadium, and those people got pennies on the dollar of their homes.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
And can you imagine like today's property value? And I sold some homes there before I moved to DC. The property values in that area, I mean, that is now a multi-million-dollar Elysian Park and Highland Park. Those are now $1 million plus. Like you can't get into anything
plus
below $1 million.
By the way, Peter on the chat saying friends did that in Sicily with an old farm outbuilding. The problem was the endless regulations regarding rebuilding it into a residence. It took them a decade to actually get the permits. So it's not a year in Provence; it's a decade in Provence.
But that
makes sense. France would be the same thing, I'm sure. The regulation, the bureaucracy in Europe is crazy.
To Peter's point, that's what some of the videos on TikTok and Instagram, these young Gen Zers, like I said, like I started out saying, was they realized they got in over their head because they hadn't researched the regulation, the local laws. They're American. So they come in thinking of like this American, like, oh, I know American, basic American residential laws. Well, you're different. You're in a different country. You're in Italy. You're in Sicily now. Or wherever, if you're in Provence or wherever. But they were citing, it's still cheaper. They still say, it's so much sweat equity, but they're saying, I will never be a homeowner in America because I can't go to Elysian Park and buy a $300,000 house anymore. And, a starter home. I can't buy that. I can't afford that, even if that existed, which they don't. So they have to move overseas and they work remotely. So, they're getting their EU citizenship. They're buying some old broken down dilapidated villa for $1,000 or whatever. But then they're stuck there realizing, oh shit, this is a lot more than I bargained for. But in the end, I'm out $100K versus
but also
700
years of your life. And time matters. I think, and especially if it's a lot of it.
Well, like we said, these are Gen Zers. They're like your son's age. These are the older Gen Zers that are a few years older than your son. They've got some time. Time's on their side. So,
we know they're certainly not having kids.
Well, that's right.
So sex, right? We know they're not having sex.
They can dedicate it to living life under the Tuscan sun or whatever for their $1,000 villa,
All right.
So
Yeah, I mean, look, you know,
and get a
who
passport.
wins from all this? If and when they ever adopt a kid or whatever, that kid will inherit it. It'll be, my parents were hardworking. They did all this. Sadly, they died just like it was like a Jean de Florette, Manon de Sceaux tragedy. Fell down the well, hit over the head by rocks.
God. They fell down, but they left me this Tuscan villa instead.
Yep. And now I'm living large and growing hydroponic weed in the backyard.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Since I'm unemployed and not it's not picking up any steam anytime soon for me on this employment side, Ted. Maybe this is a conversation I need to have with my husband about moving to
maybe
some small town in Italy.
Yeah, let me just tell you though, it's I mean, you're getting a little old for that. Anyway, let's move on here. The leaders of two of the nation's biggest and most influential labor unions have quit their jobs in the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the American Federation of Teachers, the AFT, and Lee Saunders, president of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, also known as the AFSCE, are going to quit the DNC. Yeah, the astral stuff. Both, by the way, this kind of blows me away, Manila. Did you know that the head of a labor union could be on the board of a political party like that?
I did not until literally today.
I honestly think it's all part of the incestuous nature of American politics.
Of course.
It's obviously allowed, but it shouldn't be allowed. It's unethical.
No.
I mean, imagine if you're
conflict of interest.
I mean, the AFT and AFT, they have those unions have Republican members who are right. They do, and so why are those people paying their union dues to a union whose president is literally part of the leadership of a major political party that they disagree with? And obviously this goes the other way around too. I wouldn't, if they were on the board if they were on the RNC, same thing. Like, it's just wrong, right? I mean, and
conflict of interest.
And then there's the DNC itself. Why do you have labor leaders in the DNC instead of grassroots Democrats?
Ted, it's like this weird conflict of interest thing doesn't matter, because imagine we had, I don't know, like Dr. Fauci owning tons of stock in Pfizer. That's
right. Another an excellent example. Or let's just say there was a newspaper that was in charge of covering local police, and then they were purchased by that same police department. What would happen then? I mean, that seems like that. I mean, that could never happen.
That
obviously.
Seems weird.
That's insane. I shouldn't be making things up.
This is a democracy, Ted, and democracy is in their name. They're the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so by definition. So both union heads said that under the leadership of the new chairman, Ken Martin, the DNC is failing to expand its big tent coalition. They had both supported the guy who ran and lost against Martin for the chairmanship, Ben Wickler, chairman of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. Martin subsequently kicked Randy out of the Rules and Bylaws Committee, which is a committee that sets the calendar and process for the nominating process. I wonder if they're going to go back, by the way. Remember how Joe Biden jiggered the 2024 primaries by making South Carolina first instead of New Hampshire and Iowa? So I wonder if they're going to go back to the old ways. He can
get wind beneath his wings.
I would say his old, tattered, skanky wings, his liver-spotted wings. Oh. And anyway, Randy wrote that she would turn down the offer to be back onto the broader committee, but not on the Rules and Bylaws Committee. She said, I appear to be out of touch with the leadership you're forging, and I don't want to be the one who keeps questioning why we're not enlarging our tent and actively trying to engage more and more of our communities, she wrote. Her union has 1.8 million members, and I'm sure not all 1.8 million of them are Democrats. Saunders' union has 1.4 million workers. and he also said no. So look, the DNC between this and the we're not going to get into the David Hogg thing again. Or I guess we can, but I don't want to. But the DNC is in mad disarray. There's no sign. I mean, now it's, you sort of expect a certain period of settling out after a defeat, especially a big defeat like we saw last November. But
a spanking.
It's now been over 7 months, and you would start. I mean, I think you would normally expect that by now the dust would have settled, and that the party would be starting to, find its feet, find its new footing, develop a new strategy, and be moving forward in a way that didn't make it look like a clown car. But clearly that's not the case. Clearly the recriminations and the internal strife within the party are completely unabated.
Well, I mean, we covered a lot of this by highlighting the David Hogg issue and how within the DNC itself, like the DNC, I'm not talking about Democratic voters or just this group, the DNC, that controls effectively 50% of the U.S. population or election system. Effectively, they do, because we saw what they did by railroading Bernie Sanders because he decided to run under the Democrat label. This party has been in disarray for at least the last 10 years since the first Bernie run. And it's gotten progressively worse and not progressive. They've actually been regressive in I think back to their roots of, let's not forget that they were actually the party of KKK and division and hatred in America in the early days. And granted, they have, a new look like this gentleman here, African American. We have this lady, Randy Weingarten, like Department of Education lady. And this guy, I'm kind of surprised, kind of middle-aged, cis white dude. Sorry, Ted. Just
we still run everything, Manila. Don't forget.
You cis white males just ruin everything. So they have all of this, and they're like, saying,
who's the gay porn star on the right?
I don't know. That's what the Gen Zers look like now. That's their look. And I couldn't tell if the lady behind him is lady or she, they, them. I don't know. I've never been able to figure out that person's been on TV before. I'm not sure. But anyway, this whole party has been just fucked up since the Bernie Sanders run the first time against Hillary Clinton, when they sandbagged him the first time, when they railroaded him the first time. You brought up Hillary Clinton earlier about, her versus Saddam going up to people's houses, be like, hey, what's up? Saddam wants to come have dinner here. And everybody in the Republic would have opened the door and been like, oh my goodness, like I need to bring out the good soap. Hillary Clinton shows up to a random door. Most people are going to probably yell and shout in her face. She's not going to be welcome. The point I'm making there is the problem with the DNC is they think that is still where the population is. That's why they still trot Hillary Clinton out to all of the big cable shows. This weekend she was out at the Soros, the younger Soros, Alex Soros's wedding with Huma Abedin. They still trot her out everywhere as if she's the de facto leader of the party. They have not let go of this stupid idea that she represents especially young Democrats. And that was the whole point that David Hogg was trying to make, even though he would consider, somebody like me, a late Gen Xer, borderline millennial. I'm ancient to him, but his point is taken. This whole party needs to be completely gutted, and they need to revisit who and what they represent. I would say circa the 1980s, right? That's where I think the Democratic Party had a lot of wind beneath their wings, because their opposition to Ronald Reagan, opposition to big corporations, they were moderates. They were more like Joe Manchin. Right? he looked more like what the Democrats were in the old days, 45 years ago. But there was mass popularity for the party back then because the Democrats didn't, they didn't hang on the mantle of woke, on the mantle of DEI. They fought for the side of the working people. I grew up in a Democratic household. It wasn't necessarily vote blue no matter who, but it was a Democratic household and union household. And that's who the Democrats represented back then. Who do they represent now? Who actually supports them other than the people that have been brainwashed to say vote blue no matter who? Who do they actually represent? What interests do they actually represent? They represent big business and big pharma and big everything else. So they have a lot more problems other than little Hoggy over there and this dude and Randy Weingarten.
Yeah,
and
little Hoggy was one of the less bad things they had going for them. Yeah.
And that's saying a lot coming from us, Ted.
Yeah, because we hate him.
So yeah. Such a smug little rat face.
He's a shitheel. But yeah. But seriously,
he's right.
He was one of the better shitheels.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of these, all of these people, this guy too, all of these people don't get it. And they are part of why, if you hate Trump and you were part of the No Kings
by the way, how
protest.
Honestly, another thing too is like, okay, a teachers union, okay, you might have to go on strike sometimes, right? And like you might have to be confrontational against government. The government includes Democratic politicians. What if the California teachers want under the AFT decide to go to strike against Governor Gavin Newsom?
PTA goes rogue. Yeah.
But I mean, what if they decide to go on strike, right? Like it happened in West Virginia, the teachers went on strike.
Right.
Okay, so how do they confront Democratic politicians, mayors, city councilmen, board presidents, governors who are Democrats if they're on the fucking ruling committee of a political party? It's fucking insane.
It's too cozy. I mean, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem with the DNC, because you don't have, their rules are different, right, Ted, from the RNC and how they conduct elections.
Yeah. Like ironically, the RNC is far more small d Democratic than the DNC. The RNC they don't have superdelegates that are party insiders. They don't, and the RNC, they'll often have to deal with an insurgent candidate. The example I always like to bring up is Arnold Schwarzenegger running in the runoff in the special recall election after Gray Davis in California.
Right.
The state GOP did not want Arnold to be the guy. But when it became very clearly that he was going to win that primary, so they got out of the way and they let him be elected, be nominated and elected. And he turned out to be a successful governor.
He was actually pretty good.
And he really revitalized the state GOP at a key time. After he left, the party went back to shit. So the point is, they got out of the way. Trump, the party, the Poobahs didn't want him, but he was the guy. The people wanted him. The Republican voters wanted him in the primaries, so he won, and they got out of the way. And look, they have a vigorous party now. It's not a party that I agree with, but they have a vigorous party. It's like the Democrats, they put their greasy ass thumbs on the scale. The people wanted Bernie, not once but twice, but they were like, no, we can't have that. We're going to put these old pieces of shit in charge in instead. And geez, shocking, they lost.
DNC establishments, that's who they put in. They put in Hillary and then they put in Biden. DNC establishment.
And they think they were congratulating themselves because Biden won in 2020. The only reason Biden didn't win, Trump committed electoral suicide by running away from Operation Warp Speed, and the weird way he behaved during COVID, and that's why he lost. I mean, Biden didn't beat him. Trump just simply committed political suicide. And don't forget, Trump also foolishly and idiotically told his voters in the middle of a pandemic, don't do absentee voting.
That was dumb.
That by itself, right there, right?
So that, that the 2020 is one thing, but how I've watched this party that we're looking at on the screen here from C-SPAN, like how I've watched this party deteriorate from the 80s to today, it has been I would say a fairly rapid decline, because it was like very slow from the 80s into the 90s. Then the Clintons came to power in DC, and that's where the rapid decline came into play, is when the Clintons came to power in the late 90s here in DC. They vastly changed how the DNC does things. They've changed rules. They've changed literally the tone and the tenor of how retail politics was done, and it was done with big corporations. The Clintons changed everything in the DNC landscape. They became awash with big money, and that their shit trickled down the hill, because if they're at the top of the totem pole, Ted, at the within the party and all politics in the United States, they were in the White House. If that's how they were doing presidenting, right? And I say they because, Bill didn't do this alone. He and Hillary are both, but they were like co-presidents.
That's true.
If they were willing to swim in big money, the shit rolls down the hill. Everybody else at the bottom of the totem pole at within the party said, "Oh, so that's what we're doing now? I want to swim in money too." So
everyone wants to swim in
I
money.
want in on that. So the Clintons effectively changed. So by the year 2000, the Democratic Party went into rapid decline and left behind their core values, and then took up this, whatever wokey DEI, whatever, to disguise the fact that they're the party of big corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep electing people to their leadership that are going to whip you into place. If
Mm-hmm.
you are not down with that, like David Hogg, they will kick your ass out. Randy Weingarten, granted, she's way more seasoned than David Hogg, and she was obviously, she was the ed chair, the Department of Education. She knows her way around how to work this stuff, right? So she worded it much more.
She worded it very. She did some jujitsu there, where she was like, "Oh, it's not about me. It's about like, oh, you guys just don't want to be diverse enough," which is like a great way to be like racist, sexist.
She's like, I don't want to get in the way of the way you're doing things. So
you racist piece of shit. Yeah.
So she's stepping away, but again, that's showing her fealty to the party by not fucking outing them and saying, "Fuck you. This is why you guys are tanking. This is why this shit sucks. I'm out of here. Drop the mic and go." She didn't do that. David Hogg's doing that, but but she's not. She should, because she wields power. Randy Weingarten wields power within the party.
Never should have been there in the first place, Randy. It's a bad look. And finally, last but certainly not least, though they are extremely rare, some human beings suffer severe immune reactions to other people. These often misunderstood conditions don't just affect your health, but also your work, your relationships, and generally everything you do in life. But how does this all unfold? What causes it? No one's really sure if they're true allergies or something else. Sometimes sensitivity to another person's body relates to external products. For example, your skin can carry synthetic fragrances like in deodorants and aftershades. 150 fragrances are known to cause contact allergies. Other times the trigger isn't clear. One lady with a severe version of mast cell activation syndrome, in which infection-fighting cells start to malfunction, developed debilitating allergic reactions to the smell of her husband. Sabine Altricker, doctor at Kepler University Hospital in Austria, said that while the link isn't proven, some people with mast cell disorders think they're sensitive to natural body odors or chemicals emitted by other people's skin. That's because the skin emits many compounds that contribute to body odor. These skin gases include chemicals like toluene, which occurs in crude oil and is used to make products like paints and plastics. People can absorb toluene deliberately like if you're inhaling glue to get high. What is this? The Ramones in 1976? Or unintentionally through exposure at work. Toluene is also a chemical in tobacco smoke. One group of people who might be able to shed some light on this are those who suffer from people allergic to me, PATM or PATM. PATM is an unusual and isolating phenomenon where others develop allergy-like type symptoms like coughing and choking. In 2023, Yoshika Sekine, professor of chemistry at Tokai University in Japan, investigated the skin gases emitted by people who claim to have PATM. Of 75 skin gases that they looked at, toluene was especially likely to be present. People in the PATM group emitted 39 times more of this chemical on average than those without. Sakine notes that the very concept of PATM is still not widely recognized. Meanwhile, sweat allergy is sensitivity to your own perspiration rather than other people's. As for hair, in the rare occasions where allergies related to hair have been recorded, the reaction has been caused not by an allergen in the hair itself, but in external substances like formaldehyde derivatives in keratin hair treatments or a cat protein that gets into the owner of the cat owner's hair. Now, obviously, as a cat owner myself, if I had someone near and dear to me who was allergic to the cat protein, I would have to not talk to them anymore because the cat always comes first. But, that's just me. Allergic reactions can also be triggered by specific allergens carried in your bodily fluids. In one case in the UK, a lady with an allergy to Brazil nuts got hives and shortness of breath after she had sex with a dude who had eaten mixed nuts a few hours earlier, even though he cleaned his teeth, nails, and skin before he saw her. Nuts have also led to allergic reactions during kissing in people with severe allergies. Nuts are the most commonly reported allergen posing an issue from kissing, but saliva also has induced allergic reactions following the consumption of fruits, veggies, seafood, and milk. Women with antibiotic allergies have reacted negatively after vaginal and possibly oral sex with people who had taken those medicines. And then there's semen allergy or seminal plasma hypersensitivity is symptoms that range from raised itchy skin rash to the potentially life-threatening allergic reaction anaphylaxis. I can never pronounce that. Anaphylaxis after exposure to jism. It has been recorded mainly in people in their 20s and 30s, although there have been fewer than 100 documented cases. The allergen most commonly linked to this is prostate-specific antigen, a substance that can trigger an immune response in seminal plasma.
I bet that's what Joe Biden gives off, and that's why Jill is like, no boning.
No boning. This is the fluid, apart from jism, that makes up the majority of jism, and the allergy is to a protein within it rather than in the sperm itself. Cases of semen allergy can be local or systemic. When it's local and limited to the area around contact, this is usually reported as occurring with or around the vagina. But in one case reported in Spain, a vagina, a woman who had never experienced an allergic reaction after vaginal sex, passed out and developed other symptoms of anaphylaxis following anal sex. She was diagnosed with hypersensitivity to seminal fluid. A woman in the U.S. also got swelling and rash in a non-sexual situation when her skin came into contact with ejaculate. I'm not going to ask how that happened. The local symptoms can include.
It's just there.
She could be changing the sheets as a housekeeper at a hotel, right? Local symptoms can include severe pain and burning immediately after intercourse. It's like acid. One doctor said. One of his patients described it like 1,000 needles being stuck into your vagina.
What?
Now you know. Now you know. So next time you find your vag burning and
I've developed
you'll know
a semen allergy.
Well, it could just be a UTI or an STI, but
what the fuck? So okay, I get it. There's allergies.
By the way, this is the part. If Robbie were here, I'd say so. This is where we know intelligent design isn't real, because if there were a God, or if there's a God and he's not stupid. He wouldn't design us to be allergic to each other's
Well, yeah,
reproductive
but it's only
fluids.
no. I'll stand up for Robbie here in intelligent design. Is that maybe God didn't intend for those idiots
Oh, good point.
to reproduce?
Mm-hmm. He probably could have just sent them.
So
He
few.
probably just could have like written some writing on the wall or sent some locusts or something.
It's so few people. I mean, I think it's rare, but seriously, on this the serious point of this, Ted, I a lot of Asians, I should say, not even just me, a lot of Asians actually have very sensitive skin. I had bouts of eczema when I was like starting at like 12 or 13, something like that, like in the kind of prepubescent era of my life. And it was traumatic. I was allergic to everything, like in makeup. Like, and when you're like 13, 14 years old, that's when you're experimenting and playing with makeup. I found out I was allergic to, I forget which, I just know now when I read ingredients, I kind of know what I can or cannot put on my skin, which is basically why I live life, makeup free most of my life outside of
better. It is better.
When I was on, outside of being on TV, they had to buy special like makeup for me because I was allergic to everything. Not as much as I was when I was younger.
This wasn't a jism-based makeup.
It was not jism-based foundation. It was, but although it was non-animal based and hypoallergenic stuff. And so I have these skin allergies and even now, like I had some itching going on. I don't even know what I came in contact with. It could be fabric.
Yeah, you never really know. Yeah.
You never really know. But the thing I want to highlight here is this was, in let's say this was 1992, it wasn't that common, right, for a 12-year-old to go see a dermatologist, not about acne, about severe skin allergies. I was allergic to everything. I suddenly became allergic to bananas. I suddenly, like most fruits I was eating.
You mean topically or when you ate them, and how did that manifest?
But I had anaphylaxis to some things and I had skin allergies.
Out?
I mean, I couldn't breathe and I would get hives and like breathing problems. So at first we thought I was asthmatic, but it wasn't that at all. It turns out I was having a low level anaphylaxis response.
Can you eat bananas now, or do you?
Now I can, because I kept reintroducing it to my system little by little.
Or maybe you just stopped being such a puss.
That's right. I told my body, man up, bitch. And that's what happened. No, but the in all seriousness, the incidence rate of Americans with more than topical skin allergies and just general allergies to foods, like the nut allergies, has exploded. Going to school in the 80s, we never heard of a kid having a nut allergy. There weren't stickers on the walls everywhere at the cafeteria about you can't bring nuts to school. You can't bring a PB&J to school because kids are allergic to nuts now, like at an unprecedented rate. You can't have classroom birthday parties anymore like you did in the 80s because you might have, nuts on, some kind of ingredient that is nut based in some of your foods that you bring to the party. So I think a lot of the research I've seen, I think what I've noticed is just that with Americans relying so heavily on eating highly, highly, highly processed foods, it has kind of changed. And obviously I'm no doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just a nosy journalist that likes to do deep dives into stuff. And I feel like there is, I don't know, correlation is causation, but I feel like here the incidence of Americans relying so heavily on ultra processed foods, we have removed the human state of eating real whole foods, natural foods, that our bodies are no longer familiar with these natural elements, because all we eat is packaged and processed shit. Unlike people like, let's say, I don't know, in any poor province in India, right? They don't have these kinds of allergies. They can eat everything and their teeth look better than ours. Something is going on. And I would say it has everything to do with the American diet and why we are so allergic to everything, to the point that now we're getting allergic to each other. We're getting
Well, I mean, you're totally right, Manila, that we know that, studies have shown that that those are a cause. Another contributing factor, however, might also be that we grow up in these sort of antiseptic environments when we're
That's right.
children. People who grow up in a more rural, exposed to animals as kids are much less likely to develop allergies or to become sick in general. And the numbers are clear. Like I just looked those up, right? So food allergies went up from 3.4% in the late 90s to 5.1% in the late 2000s. We don't have more recent data, unfortunately.
Now it's like in the double digits.
Asthma was 9% of American kids by 2021. That's 3 times higher than in the 1950s.
That's right.
Even hay fever, it's about 25% of all adults. It was single digits in the 70s in most of the U.S. So eczema, a lot more eczema.
That was
all
me,
those
eczema,
things.
and if you look on screen, so this animation, like the swelling of the lips and tongue, I had all of that. Those are symptoms of anaphylaxis from eating
I thought that was a symptom
banana.
of being on TikTok.
That's right. That's. I used to wish there were times where I see the women with the duck lips. And I go, fuck, I wish I had my banana allergy a little bit, because then my lips would swell up and I would get it for free. But then it came with, difficulties breathing and
maybe you should try some plantains. You never know, that might work.
No, I'm not allergic to anything anymore. I was tomatoes. I could only eat cooked tomatoes. There were a lot of things that changed. And I would say a lot of it has to do with the diet, the chemical exposure, the contaminants in our food system and our food supply. I swear by that. And that my insistence on introducing these foods, forcing my body to acclimate to them, I would say I decided to try that route in my late 20s. And by the time I reached very early 30s, after a couple of years of consistent trying, I no longer have food allergies.
That's
my
fantastic.
Skin allergies. I mean, I've really forced myself to be around ragweed, be barefoot out. I've just really forced myself to kind of confront these things that I was allergic to, because I lived in one of those Asian grandma households where there was plastic on everything. Everything got bleached, everything got over cleaned, over sanitized. So I lived in this HEPA bubble, right? Where, because they're like, oh, that's not clean. You have to leave your shoes outside. You can't ever, don't share food with friends. It was all of these don't. And as it turned out, it weakened my immune system.
It's really not good for you at all.
It is.
Yeah, antibacterial soap is not good for you.
That's right. And
during the pandemic, it became more popular than ever. And I still see people with the little tubes attached to their purses and backpacks on the subway. But get rid of those. Throw those away. And antibacterial soap is bad for you.
On the subway, though, Ted.
Just don't touch the homeless people. Except for sex. That's okay.
What, sex with the homeless people?
Well, yeah, they fuck the dead people now on the subway. It's totally cool.
Oh my God, New York City. Yeah. Oh, New York City. Okay, so with that, now you guys know about this weird. What's the acronym? PATM.
PATM.
People
allergic to
me. So yeah, because those are the handful.
It's a pretty bad acronym, I gotta say. Well, the acronym's okay. It's what it stands for. It's terrible. PATM sounds okay, but it's what?
Right. I agree with that. That
people
the acronym
allergic
itself,
to me. It's like tarded.
The acronym is actually decent because it's easy to say and remember.
Right.
PATM. But what it actually stands for is tarded. But that it's just a handful of people apparently that give off some gases, and we don't need parts.
But in many cases, it really does seem like the root cause is something that they consumed or they were exposed to.
I agree.
So that's worth noting.
There was one of the producers at my old office, at the RT office. I banned her from coming to my office, Ted. Most people would love, gay or straight, most people would love having a beautiful Colombian woman come hang out in their office. But she loves.
They are easy on the eyes.
They're easy on the eyes.
However, they're also psychotic. So there's that.
So this particular producer would come into my office, and I love her to death, love her, but I banned her from my office, and that she could only talk to me from the door, and she had to open the door and speak to me from there because perfumes.
Uh-huh.
Her perfumes would cause me. She loves perfumes. It would cause me headaches.
Was this at Sputnik?
At RT.
Oh, because the Sputnik office had the worst air circulation. It was like, God, it was stuffy in there. And I hardly spent any time there, but man.
Well, this was like my RT office, and it was like this glass aquarium that I lived in, right? And there's no windows open.
There's usually not. Honestly, TV studios don't usually have great air circulation. I'm not really sure
they just have,
why
they
that
blast
is.
air conditioning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
You want to keep the equipment cool.
That's the only reason. So I'm freezing but my office, I closed off the vents because otherwise I'd be freezing. And so she would come in and God bless her. I know she obviously didn't mean me any harm, but I realized after a couple of times, I was like, oh, it's her perfume. Mm-hmm. And I was like, honey, I am allergic to you. You cannot come in here. So I could smell her coming a mile away. I became very sensitive to it. And I think this is basically that. Patam is basically that. If you've ever experienced,
I mean, perfume, like when I was in the 80s, when more people smoked, I dated some women who smoked, and I was, I have asthma. I'm allergic to. I don't know if I would say I'm allergic to cigarette smoke. I just hate it. I don't like it.
Right.
And so, it clings to everything, particularly hair.
Sure.
And with women, it also manifests in other ways, if you know what I mean. Like, it comes out your pussy. I'll just say it. So, you can tell if you're an oral sex aficionado.
There's an ashtray vagina syndrome.
What would the acronym? AVS? Yeah, several. Yeah, women. I unfortunately suffered the results of AVIS, and it was bad. I mean,
you've heard of ashtray mouth, but
look, you can tell you can literally tell, like, oh, you had Italian food last night, or whatever. You can tell. So, like, the thing is,
what?
You can tell. I think this. But by the way, nobody knows this, and it should be widespread. Like, women everywhere need to know. Like, oh, if you went to the garlic festival in Gilroy last night, like, your boyfriend's gonna know, or your girlfriend, is gonna know the next day, for sure. It's all gonna come out.
I've heard of this for guys, and guys should eat pineapple.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. But I'd never heard of it for women.
Most women are never really in a position, in my experience, to taste the pineapple, because most women don't swallow. There, I said it.
I've especially not heard of ashtray vagine.
Yeah, no, it's a thing, and it's gross. I mean, yeah, and you're sort of like something that should be giving.
So this is like that
pleasure to two people ends up being really miserable for one. So
okay, that's.
I want to become a national spokesperson for the anti-AVS Foundation.
I'll be doing. You've got something.
Can you imagine, like, a congressional testimony?
You need to show up to
in Congress.
Need to show up to, like. I can imagine that. That's the thing. You need to show up.
Millions of Americans are suffering from AVS, also known as RC for rancid crotch.
You need to show up to the annual OBGYN conferences and give speeches about AVS.
True. Right.
Because I don't think those doctors have done enough research, because I've never heard about it.
No, nobody knows. I mean, I think
I've never heard about it.
Lady smokers don't really realize the damage they're doing.
I used to be a smoker. I never knew.
Yeah.
Huh. I never knew.
I mean, it's an act of cruelty on par with the genocide in Gaza.
Geez, I mean, I've heard of the smoke in my hair, but
there's a lot. I mean,
downstairs.
You know how there's all these adulting websites and books. I mean, this is all because there's so many things that nobody talks about, and that like are
The taboo.
really important to know about in life, but no one tells you. And this is one of them.
We can write a book about that. You know, seriously, like
that would be great. 50 things that I wish someone had told me.
Right, because they're taboo for whatever reason. So one of my girlfriends, when I lived in Dubai, one of my girlfriends, I had never seen a woman breast pumping before. That was the first time I've seen it in action, right? And I'm over there banging away, writing an article, and she's sitting up, on my couch, and I hear the machine going grr, 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 grr. And I'm working on a story, and I turn around and I look at her, and she told me she's pumping. She's like, "Do you mind? I'm gonna pump." And I said, "No, not at all." So she's pumping, grr, grr, grr. And I turn around to say something to her, and I realize that her nipples are doing this. Splash, 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 splash in every direction.
What?
Yeah, did you not know this, Ted?
No.
Did you guys think that our breasts are like cow udders that it's just
yes.
No.
How does it work?
The nips are porous all around and different. Every woman has a different like nip
they're all
pattern.
Different, right? There's the big silver dollar ones, there's the little dime ones.
No, but the actual nipple itself, not the areola, the nipple. The nipple itself is not like a baby bottle nipple that has like one hole and it just pumps out the milk.
Oh yeah, I guess there's the little pores around it.
It secretes. You have pores, and every woman's pores on her nipple are specific to her boob. But anyway, there are hundreds of little holes. So when she was pumping, I was going.
So it's more like a shower head then.
Yes. So I was going, "Oh my God, what's wrong with your tit?" And she said,
"There she blows."
She was like, "Babe, what are you talking about?" Because she's Aussie, right? And I'm going,
"Oh my God,
why is your nipple splashing milk in every fucking direction?" And she goes, "That's how it comes out." And she's like, "Yeah, I was really weirded out about that too. I wish somebody had told me this." And I was like, and I went closer and I went to look and I went, "Oh my God, it's coming out in like a shower, like just, oh my God."
She's a sprozzler.
So obviously then one day I became a mom and sure enough, I looked down like,
same thing.
Well, fuck. No one tells us.
Have you ever discussed this with other moms?
No, because I don't know. It just with her, that was like 15 years ago. And then with me, and I was like, well, fuck. It's not a cow udder. It wasn't just her boob. It wasn't a defective boob. That's how nips work. And well, mine don't work anymore because they don't, mine are replaced.
They should be closed. Oh, right. Good point. Yeah.
With the mastectomy, like mine won't ever do that again. But they served their purpose, 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago. And I saw it myself. And I've asked other girlfriends and I said, yeah, everyone's like, well, yeah. And I said, well, how come no one's ever fucking told us?
Well, see, that's a great example. Honestly, that should have been taught, I don't know, in sex ed, but it's not really sex.
No.
But there should be I don't know if maybe human biology 101, I mean.
It's anatomy. And no one ever
and
told
boys should know
women.
Too. I mean, like I remember one of the most fascinating takeaways from sex ed for me was like, oh, so you can get you can get herpes from someone who, like, if someone goes down on you and they have herpes 1 in their mouth, the cold sore kind, that they could be a virgin, they could be a nun, they could have never kissed anyone, but you just get those from the environment. Right. And then like they go down on someone else, that can mutate from herpes 1 to herpes 2. And then you can end up with like, as if and I was like, okay, so that's the kind of thing that's worth knowing,
Yeah. And they don't teach you this. And when they don't tell you, I read lots of books, Ted, I'm a reader, I'm a researcher. There were no books that confirmed what I thought 15 years ago in Dubai about my friend's boob. Nowhere in literature anywhere said that your nip is going to go psh, psh, psh.
No, it's like the scourge of AVS. One of the worst things that can happen to a human vagina.
So there you
or
are.
any other
Ted and I
vagina.
work on this new book. 50 gross things that they won't tell you.
I mean, and it's not just all gross. We could do gross things, but I think there's maybe that one would sell better. There's all sorts of other stuff though that, like, you know, for example, okay, and we should go after this. But
Yes.
but let's say, like, I always say, like, let's say you're in trouble with, like, say, the IRS. You can't pay all your taxes, or let's say you owe a credit card and whatever, you're not going to be able to make your payment. Don't. The human tendency is to lay low and sort of like pretend like it's not happening. Don't. Always pick up the phone and call them. Always pick up the phone and call them. It always helps. If you get sued, always show up in court. It like, you will always end up being able to get a payment. You'll be able to kick it down the road, get a delay, get a deferral, get more time, get a payment plan. You always get some consideration when you show up and talk. You get no consideration. If you don't show up, they rule against you and you're fucked. That's so always talk to them. If you know, exception here is the collections agent. Never pick up, never talk to them.
Never answer those fuckers.
Don't answer those calls, blow them off. But like, the point is, like, but
call
like,
block them.
But if you're broke and, like, you know, you're, oh shit, you know, I owe the IRS, I owe them, I don't know what to do. They will do a payment plan. And it's not bad, by the way. The interest is low. So that's one of those things nobody tells you. I mean, when I first time I got like a judgment against me when I was young, I was like, la 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 la. I'll just hide. And that's like, no, that's a mistake. Don't do that.
Yeah, maybe 50 things that young people need to know.
Also, never borrow shit tons of money to go to college. Never. You'll never be able to pay it back. You can borrow a little bit, but not a shit ton.
I borrowed some, and I'm closer to 50, and I'm almost done paying mine off, Ted.
Wow.
I'm in the 5-digit range now.
I was 40 when I finally paid mine off. And it's only getting worse because, you know, the older we get, the younger people pay much, much higher percentages of what they're going to earn.
I'm now within reach. I'm in the 5-digit range. So yeah, college.
Okay. Wow.
There you are. So yeah,
right.
It's taken this long, Ted. Really has taken this long. So anyway, now you guys have had too much information. You found out about being allergic to people. You found out allergic to or ashtray vagine.
Mm-hmm.
You found out about nipples.
Yep. Sprawling.
Women's nipples. Mm-hmm. How it be spraying. Mm-hmm. It's not a cow udder, people. Mm-hmm. Ted, you're a parent. You're a parent. How did you not know this?
She wouldn't let me near her tits. I mean, I don't know.
Oh my God.
It's
appalling.
Once the kid came, I never saw those tits again. You know what I mean?
Ted, I'm appalled given how like curious you are and the fact that you were a husband, you're a dad. Mm-hmm. I'm appalled that it never dawned on you, or you never. Of all people.
And my ex, she wasn't like I'm surprised she never said anything about it.
That's what I'm saying. Women don't talk about it. That's why if I hadn't been sitting there writing a story and turned around to look at my friend pumping over there, I would have never known to think that or to ask it. So there you are. Maybe a book in the works, guys. All right. That does it for us. Thank you for tuning in on this Monday. All kinds of weird shit happening this week. So we'll see if we don't get dragged into World War III, because by all accounts, Benjamin Netanyahu is really, really lobbying President Trump to join in.
Yeah, President
all
Trump.
The cool kids are doing it.
I don't think Trump's going to fall for that. So anyway.
I hope you're right. I don't know. He's been duped a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know.
Bye, everyone.
Adios, amigos.
Bye,
Thank
Manila.
you.
See you tomorrow.
Hit the like button. Bye.